1111, adopting a fair housing policy. And that is the resolution making known our commitment to the principle of fair housing and describing actions we shall undertake to affirmatively further fair housing, and it amends the previous Housing Resolution 1693. So those are the two items on consent. Do we need either one of them to be polled? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items A and B.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember Jones to approve the consent agenda items A and B as presented. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Let's move on to new business. First item is ratification of grant applications for congressionally directed spending funds. This is discussion, consider, and act upon a request by staff to ratify the Town of Clarkdale's application to Senator Kelly and Sinema for congressionally directed spending funds. And again, DK, welcome up
Thank
to
you,
the
Madam Mayor,
podium.
council, staff. Yeah, there were, I'll keep this as brief as I can. We had four, basically applications that we put through for this round of congressionally directed spending. And I'll speak briefly on the different projects that, we put these applications in for. First was for purple pipe to be installed into Selma Mangini Park, for reclaimed water to be moved from our wastewater facility directly to that park, which then can be used for either irrigation purposes or landscaping, things like that. But it would be reclaimed water that would not cause any of our fresh water to be used. The next application we put forth was for three brand new police vehicles. We had applied for police vehicles in last year's congressional directed spending and were not approved for that. So we're trying again. And that would be for three Ford F-150 trucks that are fully loaded with all of the, emergency, all the bells and whistles that the police department needs. So the next was for the police station doors and windows to be either repaired or replaced. And if any of you have seen the police department windows, they are in a lot of them are original to the building, which I believe was 1918 when that was built, and a lot of those are in desperate need for repair, so or replacement. So we put in for an application for those to be replaced. And lastly, for our cement plant road multimodal improvement project, we put in an application for the construction or for the development of that project as well. So I don't know if you need dollar amounts or if we need to discuss that, or.
I think all of us saw that in our budget workshop, the big book, as we call it today. So it's part of our full grant portfolio that we have out there. Maybe briefly, the total amount that we're asking for?
Yeah, the total amount is just right around $4 million.
Okay.
For all four of those projects.
For
to be
all four of
completed.
these projects, okay.
Right.
In our budget meeting, Town Manager Guthrie sort of explained why these four items were chosen. Can you sort of just?
Sure. So, congressionally directed spending sounds like, oh, the senator just gets money awarded to us, but it's much more complicated than that. They actually have appropriations. It goes through the whole appropriations process, and it has to match up. The request must match up with an existing federal grant. So that's kind of the first bar. And DK, to give him a lot of credit, he did a lot of research on the different grants that our requests might match up with. So that was one step. And I also met with Senator Kelly's office and really asked them what projects, because we have a whole list. We have a 5-year CIP of projects that we need funding for. So I met with them and went over many of those projects to get direction on which ones did they feel like we had the best chance at. And that's how we narrowed it down to these four projects.
Oh, what's the time frame on when we might hear about these grants?
Do you want to speak to that? Yeah.
Yeah, it all is tied to the adoption of the federal budget. So this year, we all watched that unfold and how long that took. So we actually were awarded a congressionally directed spending grant from this last fiscal year, and we applied for it this month, last year, and we just got notified that we were getting it. Normally, those notifications happen around November, December, when the federal budget's adopted. But because it took so long, we were just now notified. So normally about a year lag time.
Any other questions for DK or Town Manager Guthrie? Okay. If not, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we ratify the submission of the congressionally directed spending request for the town and authorize the town manager to sign all required documents related to these grants should they be awarded, and we hope they are awarded.
Is there a second? Okay. It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill to ratify the submission of the congressionally directed spending request for the town and authorize the town manager to sign all required documents related to these grants should they be awarded. Yes, we hope they will be. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you so much, DK.
Thank you.
Stay right, oh, it's Joni's our next one, okay. APS Community Impact Grant. Discuss, consider, and act upon a request from staff to apply for the APS Community Impact Grant in the amount of $3,500 for the Concerts in the Park series in Town Park. Joni Westcott, Park and Recreation Director, is presenting. Thank you, Joni.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am before you this evening to get your approval to apply for a $3,500 grant through APS. This grant will allow us, it's a community, community funded grant for events particularly. And so, or programs in communities. And so we thought about this for our concerts in the park because of the gazebo construction potentially and not being able to use the gazebo. We're needing to rent stages for our bands. And 7 of those cost us close to $7,000 a season. If we are awarded this grant and we don't end up needing to use those stages for the entire time, then we can reallocate those funds to other community programs. So we checked on that for sure. So.
Any questions for Joni on this? Yes.
So is this in addition to, I know you normally get sponsors for the concert series. So this is in addition to that specifically for the stages,
Yes.
assuming we'll need them for most of the
Yes.
season.
We have a $5,000 sponsor for Concerts in the Park that helps us cover the band's cost and other expenses that we have. And then we will use this to help offset the stage cost.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joni? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we authorize staff to apply for the APS Community Impact Grant in the amount of $3,500 and authorize the town manager to sign all required documents related to this grant should it be awarded.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pearson, seconded by Councilmember Jones to authorize staff to apply for the APS Community Impact Grant in the amount of $3,500 and authorize the town manager to sign all required documents related to this grant should it be awarded. All those in favor of the grant, please say, of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joni. Okay, let's move on to item C, which is ordinance 425. I think you have the new ordinance number in front of you tonight. Uh, And this is amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 11, Section 3-5.5, initial service for existing developed properties. And this is for us to discuss, consider, and act upon this ordinance to amend the Town Code. And we have Public Works Director Lou Anderson here to present.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome, Lou.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, Lou Anderson. Yes, this agenda item is to amend Town Code Chapter 11, Section 3-5.5, initial services for existing developed properties. Discuss, consider, and act upon ordinance 425. Chapter 11 of the Town Code governs town sewer service, including conditions that require parcels to connect to our sewer system. While enforcing this code, we've ran across a couple of situations where we require residents to connect to our sewer system if they're within 300 feet. And we have a situation in Lower Town where residents is within 300 feet, but it's going to be very costly for them to connect. Manager Guthrie and I did some research of other municipalities in the local area, and we found there are a few that require connections outside. There's one in Chino or on the west side that is like 600 feet, but the majority are all adjacent to the sewer system. So if your sewer line is adjacent to your property, then we're asking that we would then require it. But if you're further than that, we wouldn't make it a requirement. So in that particular case in Lower Town, we estimated it would have cost the resident some $20,000 with construction costs and so. This is the reason we're asking for this amendment. The recommendation staff recommends that the council approve ordinance 425, making the amendments to Town Code, Chapter 11, Section 3-5.5, initial service for existing developed properties, and authorize the mayor, town attorney, and town clerk to execute all documents.
Okay, Town Manager Guthrie, do you wish to add anything to this?
No, ma'am. We picked up on this. We had a resident who was identified as needing to connect, wasn't aware of the law, and her house had been sold, and somehow it got through the cracks and no one caught that it needed to be done. So all of a sudden we found it, and when we did, there was a pretty big bill for her to connect. And so she was on social media telling everyone about it, and I happened to read it, and I thought, well, that doesn't seem really fair. So we just looked into it, and Lou did a great job of getting benchmark data so we could just see what is fair to both, all of the other sewer users who need people to be participating and sharing in costs, but also fair to the property owner. And we think this is a really good compromise for everyone involved.
Any questions for Lou or for Town Manager?
I just want to thank everyone involved for coming to a good resolution on this. Again, it is super important to have everyone on sewer. We need to connect people, but we also need to be reasonable. And that is a lot of money for a single residence. It just seems unreasonable. So thank you all for paying attention.
Okay. Yes, Lisa.
Just rather than amending the code, could we not just supplement the homeowners? No, okay. All right, just, yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it just because our budget in wastewater, which is where that would come from, we're trying to get, back in the black, if you will, in our enterprise fund. So I wouldn't recommend it unless there was a direct benefit to the town, for example, commercial, industrial, and there's a large potential sales tax benefit to the town. Then you will see some type of negotiations in a development agreement where we would then maybe contribute.
Okay, but not for a single homeowner. Okay, thank you.
My understanding is that there's triggers that make this happen. Do all those triggers still stay in place if we change it from 300 feet to adjacent? And I asked you, what does adjacent mean? What's the definition of adjacent? Is that in the public right of way, or is that?
Go ahead. You're fine.
Either
fine.
either one of you.
I mean, our definition would be that the line is supposed to be in the right of way normally. Normally. And that would be adjacent to the property. So the one that brought this attention to light, there was another property between this property owner and the line. So they were gonna have to traverse not only their own property, but then a whole nother parcel before they got to the line. And so that's really what made us go, wait a minute. In every other town I've worked in, it's been adjacent. If the line's going by your property, you need to connect when certain triggers happen. And those triggers are things like the property is sold, or you're doing extensive renovations, or I think the third one is your septic tank fails. So instead of replacing it, we would ask you to connect to the sewer. Those are, I think, the three triggers, if I recall correctly. So those all stay in place. The only difference is it's now adjacent to versus having to cross somebody else's, the width of somebody else's property.
Thank you.
Manager,
And-
there was that other stipulation that if they do a remodel over $5,000 or there,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Okay, any other comments? I thank you all for coming up with this amendment. I think this is important and it makes a whole lot more sense. The 300 feet never made sense to me, so I appreciate this very much. If there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 425, making amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 11, Section 3-5.5, initial service for existing developed properties, and authorize the mayor, town attorney, and town clerk to execute all documents.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, but it's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and second by Council Member Babbitt Pierce to approve ordinance 425, making amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 11, Section 3-5.5, initial service for existing developed properties, and authorize the mayor, town attorney, and town clerk to execute all documents. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you both for bringing this forward. Yay. Item D, Connect Clarkdale. Trails and Active Transportation Master Plan. Tonight we'll discuss, consider, and act upon the adoption of the Connect Clarkdale Trails and Active Transportation Master Plan. And we have Parks and Rec Director Joni Westcott will speak to this topic. Yay, it's here. Final.
Yes. Thank you for letting me come back again. I am here tonight along with volunteer extraordinaire Felicia Coates and our Trails Master Plan development company or extraordinaire, Taylor Broyhill from Logan Simpson. We're going to we have a short, Taylor's going to give you a presentation. But before we go there, I want to just thank you all, the community members who came together through our focus groups to help us make this. I mean, your support of it was the most important piece. And then we did all the work with all the other people to make that happen and to find out what was really needed for this project and what the community wanted. And it was all based on what the community wanted was more trails and how we were going to get there and what that was going to look like. And to have a plan that, not a pretty plan that sits on a shelf, but something that we can actually implement. And I'm really excited to have Taylor go through the process with you on how we got there. So I'm going to hand it over to Taylor.
Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
It's
and
good
Town
to see you
Council.
again.
It's great to see you as well. I wish I was there in person, but I'll have to make another trip soon. Are you hearing me okay?
No,
No.
we need a little more volume. Or
Okay.
kind of a lot more volume.
I think that may be a control on your end.
Can,
Yep, that's better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good, great. I will share my screen now. As Joni mentioned, as Parks and Recreation Director Westcott mentioned, I have about 15 slides that I'd like to share with you this evening to provide an overview of the process and the plan. So let me share my screen. Okay, and are you all seeing that full screen first slide of the plan cover? Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. Great, thank you.
It's Felicia.
It sure is. She probably wouldn't want you to recognize her there, but she's been so instrumental in this entire process. I actually find it very fitting that there she is on the slide. So as Parks and Recreation Director Westcott mentioned, my name is Taylor Broyhill. I'm a Trails and Active Transportation Planner and Project Manager with the Planning and Design firm Logan Simpson, and it's been my absolute pleasure over the past year to get to know the community and the town of Clarkdale and work very closely with the Parks and Recreation team, very incredibly talented and dedicated team that you all have there in Clarkdale. I want to echo what Director Westcott just briefly said to you, which is just to express my thanks for your support for funding this legacy project to establish the town's first Trails and Active Transportation Plan.
Taylor, can I
yes.
stop you for just a sec? We've got a bit of an echo and I'm not exactly sure why.
Okay.
But we might need just a little bit more volume, Charity, and no more volume. We're up as high as we can go. Okay. And maybe just speak because of the echo, just go a little bit slower so you're not backing over.
Okay.
Let's try that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sure. Just again, wanting to say thank you for supporting this process, supporting the community and expressing their ideas and passion for trails and active transportation. And so, as I mentioned, I have about 15 slides here to cover the process. This plan has recently been recommended for approval by the Parks and Recreation Commission at their most recent meeting. So to begin with a bit of background, in 2020, the Clarkdale Parks and Recreation Department conducted a community-wide survey, and trail system opportunities were the #1 amenity that the community wanted to see. Respondents to that survey requested varying types of trails, including trails that connect neighborhoods to local feature or local recreation destinations, local businesses, schools, neighboring communities, and adjacent public land that surrounds the town. 1 year later, in 2021, the Clarkdale General Plan set the goal of providing access to linkages between open space, parks, and user-specific destinations. Additionally, the town's general plan identified actions related to trail development and expanding connectivity for active transportation. So since the adoption of the 2021 general plan, the Clarkdale community has united around a shared vision for a town where residents and visitors of all ages and abilities can enjoy multiple opportunities for physical activity, for active transportation, and ultimately a high quality of life that they have come to enjoy. So to realize this vision, the town endeavored on this planning process that we have come to call Connect Clarkdale. And Connect Clarkdale is the name of the plan, and it is a guidebook for establishing or for accomplishing the general plan's goal of establishing that interconnected trails and active transportation system that will link Clarkdale's many unique assets. So I want to take a moment to define what we mean by active transportation, and that is what you see here on the slide: walking, bicycling, even micromobility, such as scooters and skateboards, and of course, mobility devices, such as wheelchairs, and in the case of soft surface trails, even equestrian uses. So it's a very all-encompassing definition, and these are essentially modes of transportation that are primarily activated by human power. And so the purpose of this plan is proposing the network of facility types for active transportation that includes things like connector trails, multi-use paths, pedestrian sidewalks, bike lanes, bike routes, and nature trails, all combined into a unified network of routes. So looking at the town as this entire interconnected system. Okay, so how did we get here? Now that we have an understanding of what the plan is, I'll briefly cover how we got to this point and highlight the planning process itself. So the planning process that took place over the past 11 to 12 months was organized into 8 tasks. It began with lots of research and data collection, public engagement from the very beginning to understand needs and opportunities, and then verifying and refining our proposed routes in order to develop that preliminary system that we vetted with partner agencies and key stakeholders. And then eventually we developed estimates of probable costs and finally prioritized projects. So there was a lot of information and considerations and data that went into how we developed the alignments, the routes that you see on the master plan map. That included consideration of lots of geographic information system data, data that was collected from the community, including proposed conceptual, historic, and social trails, along with ideas from key partner agencies, such as representatives from neighboring towns like Cottonwood, public land managers, and as I mentioned, the community in general were very instrumental in helping us develop these routes. So we evaluated all of these ideas, all of this data, and also included physically ground truthing these alignments. So walking potential routes, as well as hours of GIS desktop analysis, and just considering every possible option. However, I do want to acknowledge that not every route or idea that was proposed back in last May of 2023 or even prior to then made it onto the final map that is in the plan today. So while we considered many, many different alignments, there were many strong determinants, and those are the things you see listed here on the slide that impact what made it into the final draft system that you're reviewing tonight. So these include factors such as topography, hydrology, land ownership, all different kinds of both physical, topographical elements that we had to consider, as well as just other factors that impact whether or not a route was going to be viable and feasible. And as Director Westcott mentioned, we want this plan to be implementable and actionable. And so that's why we looked at each route with such scrutiny to ensure that what we are proposing is something that we indeed believe can be accomplished. So in addition to those considerations that I just listed, I mentioned before, but just want to underscore the importance of community input as one of the most influential factors in identifying those preliminary routes. As I mentioned, we had our first public engagement event in May 2023 to kick off the project publicly. We had a second stage of engagement in July, working with our key partner agencies to review preliminary routes. But over the course of the process, including our draft plan open house, approximately 160 Clarkdale residents, visitors, and other constituents were engaged through our engagement efforts. So I'll take just a few minutes now just to provide an overview of the master plan system map. It's organized into 4 sections. So for each quadrant of the town. And we've also organized the routes into 2 systems based on their time frame. So we have a near-term system, which prioritizes connectivity that we believe can happen within the next 10 years. And then we have a long-term system, which looks at build out of a more complete system that includes more recreational trails and projects, and trails or projects that have especially challenging elements to them. And those projects in the long-term system are expected to take longer than 10 years to realize. You'll see a range of facilities included. And so this includes things like off-street trails, so that are maybe not within the public right of way. We've identified those as connector trails, nature trails, and also in some cases identified alternate trail routes where those presented themselves. You'll also see on-street features, things constructed primarily within the street right of way. So bicycle facilities such as bike routes, bike lanes, multi-use paths, which are shared use for cyclists, pedestrians, other mobility devices, and then of course sidewalks. And then we've also included the identification of future trailheads where there are waterway crossings or bridges, road crossings, and also the location of wayfinding signage. And these features are all identified on the map. So ultimately, these facilities all come together to comprise the routes on the map, and essentially they are what provides this connectivity that we heard as a really key theme over and over from our public engagement, from talking with key partner agencies, just the desire to connect Clarksdale from north to south, east to west, within the town itself, and also to external connections as well. And so that's what this graphic ultimately represents, sort of that overarching connectivity that this system, once completely built, would achieve. So this is the master plan system map as presented in the plan itself. I won't go through this in detail, but just will highlight a few notable projects. One of those being what we have identified with this sort of green halo line, which is what we're calling the Clarkdale Spur of the Verde Valley Circle Trail. So the Verde Valley Circle Trail, if you're familiar with it, is an approximately 90-mile trail that encircles the Verde Valley. And we're proposing a spur through the town of Clarkdale. And that spur would be comprised of the routes that you see here that are highlighted in green. And so it would be comprised of multiple projects identified in this plan or already existing, in the case of mini sidewalk connections, connecting those together to form what we're calling the Clarkdale Spur. Also proposing a small network of trails in Centerville where there currently are no formal trails today, but there are in many cases social trails that folks are using, but we're proposing a network that not only provides direct connectivity from Centerville to the rest of the townwide system, but also this long-term opportunity for recreation in that area through a closed loop network. In the northwest, we are planning for multi-use paths connecting to and from the Clarkdale Jerome School, Main Street, and Yavapai Apache Nation. Along the Old Jerome Highway corridor on the western edge of town, we have identified multiple north-south routes that offer different types of facilities to accommodate all user groups, and providing, again, that sort of that north-south connection all the way down to the blowout wash trails at Yavapai College. And we can say the same for the eastern side of town. Again, multiple north-south corridors identified, both on and off-street facilities, routes connecting to the river access points and even beyond. So after those routes were identified, I mentioned we provided estimates of probable costs, and then we also prioritized routes, working with staff through multiple workshops and conversations. And there is a series of prioritization criteria included in the plan, but essentially they are organized around these 5 questions that you see on the screen. So there was consideration given to each project to determine how financially viable it is, whether or not it satisfies an immediate need, things like addressing health and safety concerns. Does it provide additional benefits to complete maybe a project that is partially developed or a current project? Is it especially significant to the community? And this could be things like providing for the equitable geographic distribution of trail connections, or providing for an unmet need. And then finally, we evaluated whether or not a project is opportunity driven, meaning are there other opportunities to consider that can be leveraged in terms of resources or partnership opportunities to help make the project a reality. So after working through that prioritization criteria for each project, 11 priority projects were identified in the plan. And those are what you see here on the slide. However, the plan absolutely does acknowledge that priorities can, and as we all know, they can and they will shift. And so this is something that should be reevaluated annually as the context around these projects may change. But having that prioritization criteria is something that will equip staff, as well as you all as elected officials and community partners, with a framework for how to evaluate and reconsider these priorities each year as the department develops its annual budget and its work plans. And then finally, just to conclude, this plan, while we're finishing it here tonight, hopefully, it really does kind of mark the beginning, actually, of the real journey of plan implementation, which is marked by really beginning to work closely with those partners, some of which the relationships were further established through this planning process, and then working across multiple levels of community action, from action taken by the Parks and Recreation Department to, again, those partnerships with allied agencies or civic organizations, and working along this path to implementation for each of these projects. But essentially, the true impact of this plan will really come from the diligent and consistent efforts to bring these trails to life and to see them there on the ground one day soon. So that concludes my overview of the planning process. It's a brief, I guess, concentration of so much work and effort that has happened over the past year. But at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions or just answer any questions you have, and can work back through the slides or the plan itself if we want to get into detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Taylor. Are there any questions so far?
Could I add
Yes,
something?
yes, you
I
can.
just want to thank Taylor Broyhill for her support in this project. We went through a lot of companies. We vetted this particular company to be the best to handle this project for us. And they did an outstanding job. And particularly Taylor has led the way for us as a consultant in this project to present this awesome plan for you guys, and actually something that we can take into the future, far into the future, because there are some longer term projects that are way out there, but we wanted to capture all of them. And Taylor came out here several times and did ground truthing, she and Felicia. And again, Felicia, I know you guys all know this because I've said it before, but this project wouldn't be in front of you right now without this amazing woman, because we just didn't have the capacity to be able to take it on, even though we knew that the community wanted it. And to have someone like Felicia come up, step up and go, hey, this is my passion and let me help you. And basically take it, take the lead on it and help guide us all through the process along with Taylor. So I wanted to let you all know that because these are amazing women that have helped us get through the process.
Yeah, if Felicia could come on up, Felicia. Quit sitting in the back of the room.
Gotta get used to it.
I just want to acknowledge not only Taylor, I know you've done a fabulous job, Taylor, but I definitely want to recognize Felicia Coates for being, well, we tried to lure her to be on staff, but she won't do that. So she's I call her our Uber volunteer who has led this process and been actively involved in it for how long now?
1 year.
1 year.
For just about
Yeah,
year.
yeah, year. But this has been a vision on the books for quite a while. So this is just getting us to this point. And I want to recognize the amount of time and effort that you put into pulling this all together, going to community meetings, talking to people, working side by side with Taylor and with Joni and Shell on this, and bringing it forward in a comprehensive way. This is absolutely a marvelous document that we will use. Absolutely. We don't do it for that. So I just wanted to recognize you, and I want you to say any comments that you want to say on this plan.
I think I would just reiterate what Joni said. I mean, trails are a passion of mine. So when I learned that trails are the top rated recreational opportunity in Clarkdale, that's when we kind of put together, a proposal to the town manager, and she accepted and funded this project. So thank you very much for that. And so I'm looking forward to the implementation phase. So we're not done. We're going to have to go into the implementation phase, and that's a new chapter. But thank you all for, as a volunteer, giving me this opportunity to take on such a project, because it's been very gratifying to work on it, to learn through this process, and to see it come to this point and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you. Stand up there and see if anybody has any comments in general about this plan that they want to bring up. Yes, Marnie.
Thank you. I grew up in Flagstaff, which has an incredible trail system, but it wasn't always that way. And I remember as a kid how exciting it was when different pieces would get connected. And now you can go anywhere in Flagstaff that you want on trails. And I am so excited that we have that future in Clarkdale. And it's going to take us a while to get there, but we've got the plan and we can start putting the pieces in place. And every time we're doing something, we can incorporate these pieces in so that we could have a car-free community. That would be incredible. So thank you all for all your hard work, all three of you. I'm just so excited about this.
Any other comments? Deb?
Yeah, I just want to say, going through this is so detailed and comprehensive. It could almost be daunting, right? It's like, where do you start? But you can't start anywhere unless you have a map and a plan. And this is clearly the first step. And now it's just deciding, where do we go from here? And I think it's great. It's obviously a lot of hard work and input and just looked at from a whole bunch of different lenses. And I just want to commend you, all three of you, for the work that you've done on this. This is great.
I'd like to be sure and mention that it was a full team being, Shell was very involved in this project as
Yes,
well
I
and
agree.
contributed a great deal to it. And I'd also like to add that Felicia is not only a volunteer on this project, she has helped us spearhead other projects as well.
Susan.
Um,
Laura and then Susan.
We were talking in the budget meeting before about how we're excited how Broadway is getting paved and like we're excited for opening day of Broadway and letting the kids ride their bikes on the bike lanes. And so I actually think this is daunting, but it actually is also kind of fun because it does allow for little mini celebrations that lots of people in the town could participate in as we connect different features. So I just hope we just put that in the back of your mind, because I just think that's going to be the fun part of it, is to be able to say, come see the next, how we're connected in the next section and the next section and the next section for years to come. So I think that's going to be the fun end.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say that, you know, as we're standing here asking you to adopt this plan, we've already used this plan to help guide us. We didn't wait. We, no offense, but as projects came up and we were so excited to be able to go, wait a minute, we're talking about Clarkdale Parkway. We have that in our plan. We're talking about a specific way to do that. So let's implement it. Same thing with Cement Plant Road and doing that. So it's already, you know, being so important for us.
Susan.
And that was really what my comment was going to be. So I'll just kind of pile on to what Joni's saying is having a plan really helps us when we're applying for grants or to get other, you know, support for projects. And, you know, we've already now applied for 2 grants based upon the outcome of this plan, both Clarkdale Parkway and Cement Plant Road. And we have another one that's in the making right now as well. So, you know, it really is helpful. And that's something that funders really look for. Is this just something you came up for this grant, or do you have this plan that you're working through? So it's very important. And then just, I also just, of course, want to recognize the staff who, I remember when this came up and they came to me and said, you know, will you include it in the budget request to council? And I said, are you sure you want to do this right now? Because remember, we're in the middle of Selma Mangini Park, a federal grant that is daunting in of itself. I said, are you sure you want to undertake this right now? And they said yes, and they did. And not only have they done it, but it's an amazingly high quality product. So I just have to recognize Joni and Shell, and of course, Felicia and the consultant as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
One quick comment. In looking at this plan, there's a lot of walkability on it, and I equate walkability to curb and gutter. And I bet this is going to be a lot less money to get people from one point to another without curb and gutter.
Any other comments from council? I don't know if anybody from the audience wishes to comment if they took the time and read through this 100 and some page master plan. Hey. Anything else? Yeah, you come on up, Cynthia, please come up to the microphone. It's basically, yeah, we have to, it's kind of, so everybody can hear us.
Cynthia Mala, resident of Clarkdale, and I just wanted to say that I think the plan is just dazzling, and what you did in just 1 year is amazing. I was involved in the Selma Mangini Park 7 years ago when it started, and I'm just amazed at what you've gotten done. So looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Hi, Amanda Arnold. I live in Clarkdale. Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor. And thank you for this wonderful trail. The trails, I love this plan. I had a question, but then it turned into a thought that could be something to look at. I was thinking wayward signs with, like you see in the national parks where it identifies the trees and the plants, possible animals. I remember when I worked at the state parks back in Indiana, we would have the Eagle Scouts do projects like that. So I think that would be fun to get the kids involved with putting something like that together.
That's great. I think a lot of the signage, we're going to be consistent with the signage already put together through Verde Front for the Circle Trail. Is that
For all of Verde.
for all of
For
it?
Verde Front, it's
Yeah.
through the Verde Front Trails Working Group. So
Right.
we've all come together to kind of develop a cohesive signage process that when folks move from one jurisdiction to another, that they're seeing similar similar signs to help guide them.
Great. Any other questions for Joni or Taylor or for Felicia? Okay, if not, it's, again, I just want to say thank you. This is a fabulous, fabulous document, and I just love that it had the amount of public participation. People saw it many times. They got to comment on it many times. They saw it through different iterations. And it's exciting to see something come together this way. We can all truly say we've been a part of making this happen.
Yes.
So with that, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the Connect Clarkdale Trails and Active Transportation Master Plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pearson, second by Councilmember Jones, to approve the Connect Clarkdale Trails and Active Transportation Master Plan. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Woo-hoo!
Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, let's move on to future agenda items. Any agenda items? We have our full list in front of us. Here somewheres. Do you see anything that needs to be added to it? Anything else that's missing? If I see no one wanting to add anything to future agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunt Center, second by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to adjourn the meeting at 7:25 PM. Thank you all. All those in favor of motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here for budget workshop earlier and council meeting tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you.